So she's out of her native Queensland. One Nation Leader Pauline Hanson joins us from Cockatoo, southeast of Melbourne, on the way up to the beautiful mountains there. Good to talk to you, Pauline.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So anyway, north of Melbourne, but I've been to Shepparton and Bendigo. Geez, I'm doing a trip around and great support, absolutely fantastic support. Yep.
All right, a few things to rip through. Firstly, this plan for the government to own 40% of someone's home, is that a nationalisation of the housing market? Is this a bad policy?
I think it is, Chris, and I don't think it's targeting the real problem, which is high immigration, plus also you've got foreign investment in the housing industry. You know, for
there's not high immigration at the moment. The housing market's been going bonkers for the last 2 years, and there's been no immigration.
No, but if you want to bring in higher immigration, which the Morrison government wants to bring in 213,000, can you imagine the strain it's going to put on our housing? If you had 1 quarter of this year, the first quarter of this year, the housing industry has said that 16,107 homes have been built, 3.7% have been bought up by foreign investment. That equates to 595, or 2.2% have bought into established housing, which they are not allowed to under Australian laws. But the fact is, Chris, you cannot have a government. A government is there to adhere to the rule of law, the Constitution and economic stability of the country. It's not to get in part ownership of Australian housing. That's for people to save that money. I would like to see them utilise their superannuation funds to actually, if they want to be equity, with their superannuation funds into their homes, not the government. And this, to me, sounds like socialism and communism.
It's a socialism approach, there's no doubt about it. Better to lower taxes, free up more land and try and put downward pressure on prices. Let me show everybody a little clip. Sorry, I just want to move on to another issue. I want to show a bit of your cartoon from last week, one of your brilliant cartoon series. Here we go.
Every vote counts, Anthony. It's not like we can stop people voting for Morrison and we can't change their vote.
So we can't stop the votes. We can't turn the votes around. What do?
Vote people.
Vote people?
People that like to vote early and vote often.
But what if the AEC check ID at the voting centre?
Well, they won't do that, Albo. That would be racist.
That's right, yep.
Look, Pauline, I think it's disgraceful that this cartoon was banned because this issue of not having to produce ID at a polling booth is a real issue that ought to be brought into the public debate.
It's happened for years and years. Campbell Newman brought it in Queensland when he was the Premier. Guess what? The first bit of legislation Labor did when Anastasia Palaszczuk got in was to get rid of it. We have been pushing the government that there must be voter ID at the polling booths. People, in one election, there was over 18,000 people that voted more than once. When you've got marginal seats that comes down to under 1,000 votes or even a couple of hundred votes, they move people in there, they vote numerous times. We have put it to the government to get our vote on voting or polling booth or election reform. We said you must introduce voter ID, and that's part of the plan that we're pushing for. And this, Chris, you know, for the AEC to pull down this, they have failed in their duty of care. They know this has been going on for years and years. They have not advised the government to address this beforehand about voter ID. It's only One Nation pushing for this.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and I think a lot of people will support it. Now, something where you and I are perhaps never going to agree is the Indigenous voice. Now, I understand that you don't like special programs and special advantage being given to one group of people over others. But if we look at the Indigenous people in this country and addressing disadvantage, surely they should have a say in what special laws are passed about them. The government has a special power to pass laws about Indigenous people. Surely they should have a non-binding say in how all that is imposed.
Don't you feel that they have that representation on the floor of Parliament with a lot of people who are Aboriginals that have been won their positions in Parliament? For 3% of the population who are claiming to be Indigenous, they have far better representation on the floor of Parliament. That's how you do it in a democratic country. Why set up another body that actually there to actually advise the Parliament on how laws should be passed with regard to them? So isn't that what the Parliament is about? Isn't that what politicians are for?
Because the Parliament has special powers to pass laws about Indigenous people. Therefore, Indigenous people should have the right to pass some sort of recommendation, have some sort of feedback to the government about those laws.
They have been giving feedback, and yet where has it got it? Closing the gap, where has it got it? Because of the abuse, domestic violence, kids not getting the proper education. You've got people that are on the welfare program. Every bit of money that we've spent, billions and billions of dollars, has not improved anything whatsoever. Start looking at where the money is going.
So change. Let's do something different.
It's become top-heavy, Chris.
So let's do something different.
Right, because it's top-heavy. Let's bring in accountability first before you start up another body.
Maybe that's what a voice will do. Maybe a voice will bring in accountability.
No, I'm sorry. It won't. And ATSIC never did it either, Chris. It was a failed organisation that cost the taxpayers $2.2 billion, never addressed the problems whatsoever. I'm telling you, it is about, I want audits done in these departments. I want to see where the money's going. All these organisations being set up, feathering their own nests. I hear it from the Aboriginals. They are angry themselves because the money's not getting where it's supposed to go.
Well,
and
some
it's all
people are.
top-heavy, and it's an Aboriginal
Lots of different
industry.
Aboriginal people with lots of different views, but I appreciate your time, Pauline. Thanks for joining us. And this debate over the voice will go on long beyond this election, and I'll keep discussing it. And I know many of you will agree with Pauline, but I'll continue arguing my case on this. I think it's a reform we've got to look at really, really seriously.